Welcome to Art Lounge.
So, what's Art Lounge? A space for artists, ones inspiring, or those who enjoy it, to come together and share ideas, thoughts, expression, and creation. So, whether you're an illustrator, writer, musician, a sculptor, comedian, dancer, architect, or someone who enjoys art in general, this space is for you. I'll be streaming daily with a mix of content, and in the near future, I'll be announcing different opportunities for you to participate in. For this half of the stream, I'll be sharing ways you can improve your drawing skills, starting with the figure. Hey guys, welcome back to Art Lounge, the second part of figure drawing basics. And oops. I'm just getting ready, waiting for people to join. Hey Toasty, thanks for joining. We're gonna start in just a few minutes. Gonna go ahead and start now. I wanted to kind of go over what we did yesterday. I spent more of the time just talking about ways you guys can improve your drawing without really talking about the figure that much, or what exactly it is that you're seeing as I'm drawing. A lot of it is kind of self-explanatory, but I also wanted to just go over it and give you guys my view on it. So what we did was, what I was doing yesterday was just showing you guys how you could use the head as a measurement to make sure that everything is proportionate with the figure. So as you could see, the torso is 2 heads going across, and 3 heads going across if you include the shoulders. And the same thing, you can see here, it's 2 heads going vertically to make sure that the torso is proportionate right about to where the waist is before the hips start. You guys could see that it really is the best unit of measurement. You know, if you're going to use that foot, for example, as the measurement, or the hand as the measurement, it's not really as effective because, again, you're going to have to measure that, and having to do it, you're going to use more of whatever it is, whether it's the hand or the foot, rather than just trying to summarize it and using something more efficient like the head. And going over here, you could see that the leg is also 2 heads going down, well, right about to where the knee is, and then from the knee down to a little bit before the end of the toes, it's also 2 heads. So you can see how simple it is, that most of the body really does summarize into 2 heads. The width of the leg is 1 head. and the width of, I guess from the knee down to your foot is about 3/4 of a head. And, you don't really, I would say, try to stick to it as much as possible from the beginning. Try to measure these out as much as possible. It's a process. This is how you eventually get better, and your eye is able to recognize it instantaneously by drawing it over and over again, looking at it, studying it. You're able to eventually just make it second nature. Like we were discussing yesterday, it really does become like tying your shoe. You eventually don't even think about it, you just do it. But before you do it, you have to learn these methods. You have to learn how and what really entails the proper anatomy, the proper proportions to each body part. So then going over here, you could see the same thing. If you're gonna measure the entire figure, well, right about to where like the end of the pelvis is, let's say it's 4 heads going down. So like you saw over here, it's 2 heads for the torso, but if you want to measure it from the top of the head all the way down to where the pelvic area is, it's 4 heads going down. And notice, and this is something that's really common as well when I see it drawing, and even some professional artists as well, they tend to make the hands or the arm really short. Like if you were to look at it, the arm would come right to about here, would end, but really, all the way down to the hand, it goes past the pelvic bone, it goes past that area. So always make sure that the hands are actually long enough. Otherwise, it's gonna just look gimpy a little bit or just disproportionate. And then going down from the pelvic area to about the knee, that's also 2 heads, as you guys can see. Now I recommend, like, despite me just talking about this now and just showing you guys, I highly recommend that you take the time to sit and draw this on a daily basis, just as practice, something warm up. And it's, as you guys can see, it's pretty simple. There isn't really that much detail. It's primarily cylinder shape. So if you have to trace it, to make it quicker so that you could jump into doing whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's another project that doesn't really have to deal with it, just incorporate it into your daily practice, daily routine, to sit down and draw this, trace it if you're just a beginner, over and over again, and eventually you'll understand. You won't even have to refer to the drawing or the tracing technique. You will just remember, like, oh, I drew this yesterday, I drew this 3 days straight. I could recognize that when you're drawing a cylinder shape, it does taper off towards the knee, that it's not just like straight parallel lines to each other. It eventually tapers down, and you could see that really the tapering down comes from the outside towards the knee, towards the inside. It's not as much. And this is just a general shape. Once you get this general shape down, once you get this skeletal structure down, then you could start adding more detail within the leg, like adding the muscles, so on and so forth. But just some groundwork, some frame that you could have so you could set yourself a limit. Otherwise, if you're just trying to draw, like we were saying earlier, like if you were to jump into the detail, you might end up making it like too broad, for example, like too wide, and then it's just gonna look weird. You want to set yourself, since you have to draw it twice, both of the legs, you want to set yourself some limits, and so that you could work within that frame and doesn't just go all over or expand or whatnot. So once you set that limit, then you can go into the detail and just notice other things as well. Like, for instance, the same applies here. This is kind of like a bow shape on the exterior side of the leg, going down from the shin to going down from the knee to right about to where the foot is. So it's a bit of a bow shape as well, and it tapers off more so towards the bottom than it does at the top. Now, yeah, this is similar. This is just like an example of the entire figure once assembled together, what it should look like. And if you take the time and you measure it out, like I was telling you guys earlier, like if you were to use this ruler and you were to measure it out just to make sure, as you could see, 2 heads to right about where the chest is, right, same as it is here. Then from here down to another pelvic area, and see how important and vital it is to have a ruler and a clear see-through ruler. You could really just examine and make sure that as you're learning the anatomy that things are actually precise and they fit. So you can see from here to here to here to here, it's 2 as well, and then going to the leg. At some point you kind of lose track of it, so it's easy to go back and measure it again. So from here to here, and then from here to here. And I'm just kind of eyeing it, you know. For me, I've done it plenty. Never enough, but enough to know it's a little bit off. But what you could do is, if you really want to make sure that it's right, you can mark it off. And again, you don't really have to worry about this. This isn't something that you're gonna have to do every single time. Eventually, you won't need to. Yeah, eventually, once you've practiced your hand-eye coordination, once you've practiced just seeing this over and over, and your hand getting used to doing this, you won't have to be as technical as this. But for now, you just want to make sure that you catch yourself when you do make the mistake. So next time, let's say if you draw the leg a little bit too long, you can be like, oh, I see it. Okay, well, it was a little bit too long. So next time I draw this, I want to make sure that I look out for that. You know, so if you copy this, if you draw this out, you could use it as references. Like again, once you draw this figure, you could be like, okay, well, is this actually like half the head? Is the width of the arm half a head? So let's take a look. This is the figure that I drew, half a head, and you could see why it's important to also draw the guiding lines, because now, you know, okay, I want to measure and see how wide the hand is, or the arm is rather. How wide is it? So you've already drawn the guideline. You can measure half a head here and see it matches. It's about right. So however big you draw the head is going to determine the proportion for the rest of the body. And as you can see, it really does turn out well. And just to make sure, like it is here, we drew the hands all the way down. You could see that they're really past the pelvic area. You can see they're about like, I would say maybe like a head down from the pelvic area. A little bit less than that. You can see, yeah, it's just a little bit past that. But it's definitely not up here. You know, the hand doesn't end right about this area. It goes past it. All right, so that kind of does it for, oh, and also, let's just look at this for example. So you could notice that the pelvic area is a little bit more narrow than the chest. Like we were showing over here, the chest is 2 heads going across, whereas the pelvic area, as it comes from the shoulders, it narrows down. And this is different for the female figure. The female figure, the hips are broader, so it would be a little bit bigger. But for the male figure, this is about a head and a half. But yeah, it's best that you guys redraw this, trace this, whatever you need to do, and use it as you guys just saw me use as a guideline to help you improve on anatomy. start out today, I'm gonna do a couple of gesture drawings, just to warm up, get the hand going, and it's also just kind of fun to draw it since it is in a basic form, more simplified. So like we were talking about yesterday, the best way to start is with a circle and kind of sketching out everything before you really get down to nitty-gritty details or even just like shaping it in general. So kind of want to give yourself a framework. Now yesterday's stream, as some of you might have noticed, a lot of it was pre-recorded. And that was just simply because it's the first stream. I didn't want to be more scattered. Whereas today, it's more of live stream. So it's definitely more chill and you're not bombarded with as much information. Just doing more cylinder shapes. As you guys could see, it's kind of going off the page. At some point, I am gonna switch to a bigger pad. As much as I do enjoy working on this one, it's because of its compact size, and just to show that really you don't need much to start drawing. You don't need much space, you don't need huge books or anything. It's just enough to be able to practice and do what you need. And this is really what it's about. This is a lot of it is just practicing stuff. And some of the stuff that I was going to show you guys before, when I was talking about like filling up the page, it's really great for that. And I'll be doing these again just to show you guys the process. And drawing the figure and drawing hands, different parts of the body. Another thing that I was going to go over with you guys, and I'll do this more throughout the stream, you guys will notice me talking about it, is talking about negative space. And this is a perfect example of it. This shape right here, if you were to pay attention to it, like let's say if you're drawing from a reference and you're drawing from a book or an anatomy book or a comic book even, and you're drawing the character, just notice the negative spaces right here. And this is kind of like a mountain shape, right? you were to look at it, it kind of changes your perspective. Like, what are you drawing? Are you drawing the leg, or are you drawing this mountain shape? And it's a way of like just refreshing your perspective to make sure that the relationship between what you're drawing, you know, the relationship between this leg and this leg, or this part of the leg, is about right. So you could just use all these tools as a way of making sure that things are as close to the reference as possible. And you really want to do that in the beginning. Try to be as exact as possible, because it's not just about the subject. It's also, we were saying earlier, it's about training your hand-eye coordination, getting better and better and more precise, noticing little details, because every little detail really does make up the picture and makes it look realistic, more proportionate, and just anatomically correct. So the more you train your eye to notice details and have your hand be able to translate that onto the paper, the better it is for you. So just using all these tools, like studying the negative spaces, you know, shifting your perspective from focusing on these specific things like the leg to, okay, it's like an abstract shape, it's a mountain. And then you could just focus on that and you could see like, okay, well, this is the shape to it. Is it as it is in the reference? Is the shape the same? And by doing that, then you could bring the objects closer to each other better. You know, as opposed to if you were to draw the leg just how you see it, it might be a little bit higher. It might be like here, you know, as opposed to being closer. And this method helps you make it more precise. So study this as well as the figure, and just change in between them and do whatever it takes in order to get it as accurate as you possibly could. I think one of the biggest challenges for me when I was just starting out was learning how to draw loosely, as you see I'm doing right now. Not pressing too hard, not not pressing too hard, not getting too bogged down by the details at the beginning, and just kind of like quickly sketching whatever it is that I was doing. So as you guys could see, like first I gave myself some sort of limits. You know, by doing these quick little sketches, I could go back and start making little corrections here and there. And that's a lot easier than having to make those corrections after putting in lots of details. No, I think the only pitfall so far is not giving myself more space. As you can see, like the foot is kind of going out of that. But the next figure that I'm going to be working on, we're going to address that and make sure that everything fits within the frame. Now, another advice that people usually have for drawing a figure is when parts of the figure kind of collide, like you see over here, they recommend drawing it out to make sure that it's proportionate and that it makes sense. So in this case, and this is something that takes time to get used to. You know, you have to see it transparently for it to make sense, and sometimes it gets a little bit confusing when you're looking at all this. You're like, wait, what line is what? But the more you practice it, the easier it becomes to see it. So just to simplify this a little bit more, you could see that really this is kind of like two cups combined together. And in perspective, you could see that the way that you need to draw it, same you would need to draw two cups connecting. It kind of just makes it easier, less intimidating to draw out the figure using these shapes. And just to give it a little bit more perspective, add some shading. It's also a great way to practice control over the pencil. You know, if you get yourself like a small pad, which I was actually going to show you guys. Something about like this size, you know, not too big. And I really like these pages because they're also pretty thick. Yeah, you can see that it's like pocket size. You could fit into your pocket, or it's just small enough to go into a small bag, and you can just carry that with you. And whenever you get a chance to just sit down and practice, this is great for that. But going back to ways that you could improve your control over the pencil, just being able to not press hard whenever you're drawing, is practicing how to shade. And you want to start from light and then get darker and darker as you go through it. And just do that all over the page. Like, this is really what these sketchbooks are for. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just space for you to be able to do whatever it is that you want. And the more you think of it that way, the more loose you become with your drawing. Now, of course, some pages you can just dedicate to drawing as best as you can. But other pages you could use for things like this, where you're just practicing shading over and over again. Keeping in mind that you want to make sure that it goes from light to dark. Now, I wouldn't recommend you doing this with like the blue pencil as much. You don't really want to waste that lead. You could do this with like a regular pencil and just bring it out. Like this is just a regular HB pencil. And it's the same idea. From light into dark. And the more values you have in between, the better. You know, you don't want it to be like a stark difference. When you're going darker and darker, like you don't want to start pressing really hard. And this is something that I've seen a lot of beginners do as well, is like, it's kind of extreme. Like, well, the difference between the shades is really extreme. And they get harder, they press harder and harder as they go, and you could see the point where it breaks, like from light into like a mid-tone into shadows. So you want to blend that as much as possible and get better and better at doing that, and just naturally and quicker. This is like light exercise. You know, like let's say if you're going to the gym, you're not going to start lifting like the heaviest weights. You want to like stretch first, right? So this is kind of what this is. This is like stretching. You're just warming up, making sure that your hand is ready to be able to make all sorts of lines and have more control over the kind of lines that you make. And this is a great way to do it. It's kind of relaxing as well. You know, you're just kind of zoning out and looking at these different shades. There's pleasure in that as well. And you could do that with even like more basic shapes as well. If you're doing like a circle, want to start out with it being light, and again from light into dark. So I'm going to do it in layers just as another method. You could start out like the lightest, right? And then from there you could determine where is the light coming from. So like let's say the light is coming from this direction, right? This is the sun, and it's hitting it this way. So the most light that the ball is going to get is going to be at the top surface, right? And everything underneath it is going to turn into shadow. And this really varies. Like let's say if you're doing it in natural light, it's the gradation is going to be a lot less dramatic. Whereas if it's like, let's say a lamp, right, let me just show you guys on like another object. I don't know if you guys can see this one. Yeah, so as you could see, right, this is where the light source is coming from. So it's hitting the top more than it is hitting the sides here, right? And let me know, guys, in the chat if you could hear this, if you could hear it well, or if the mic is cutting out or not. In that way I can fix it. It's kind of difficult to tell. But yeah, anyways, going back to this, you could see how it's hitting at the top over here, and then the shadows start to form from the side over here. And that's just because it's dramatic light. And it's not natural light, whereas in natural light, you would see the gradation. There would be a lot more gradation coming out. So going back to this, let's just assume this is not natural light, that this is light coming from the lamp and the object is closer towards the light. So the light would be a lot more dramatic here, and the shadow would be a lot more dramatic as well. And even though you could see this line right here, you could just work on that until it's blended in a little bit more. And again, we're doing this in layers. So the first one was really light, and the second one was your mid-tone. And then we'll finally work on the shadows. That's really what you have to remember when you're doing shading and when you're practicing to loosen up your hand by doing all these different exercises. That really, it's like 3 tones. It's your light, your highlights, your mid-tones, right about in this range, and then your shadows. And by remembering this, it's more simplified. You don't have to worry about too much info. It's just 3 things, and just practicing that and trying to blend them in more and more as you're going through it. So, I think when people are starting out, and also when I was showing you this, there is this stark difference between each one of them, your highlights, your midtones, and your shadows, but it also is good groundwork for you to be able to blend in between those tones. And as you guys could see, it really pops out once you learn this principle, once you learn these methods. It really pops the object out, right? Like comparing it to this, you can see how flat this is, whereas this really pops out on the page. And then the final thing you want to do is add the shadow at the bottom right here. Kind of soften up the edges. And this is going to be your darkest point because it's getting the least amount of light. So right underneath the object is going to be like your blackest black. Now, if there was an object that was near, let's say this ball, if there was something else, like let's say there was a cylinder shape, what you would sometimes get is reflective light. So basically this object is also getting light, right? This is the light source and it's hitting here, so what ends up happening is it kind of bounces off and hits this object. So you would get some reflective light on there as well. And this is where you get your kneaded eraser. too dark there. You don't want to give it too much light. You know, you don't want it to be as light as it is over here, because obviously it's not direct light. It's indirect light. It's light coming off of the object, so it's a lot softer. It's not as dramatic, so you want to blend it in, but if you give it a little bit of a difference between the midtones, it pops out the image even more. And then the cherry on top is the highlights. And you can kind of soften that out too. It's a great exercise. You practice multiple things. Obvious ones, the shading. It's the shape itself, you know, drawing the circles we were talking about, practicing and getting better and better at that. And hand-eye coordination, shading techniques, drawing loosely, not pressing too hard. So all these things you get just from a simple exercise like this. And this is something great to do, like I was talking about. Like if you have this on you and you got extra time, you could sit there and just do all these exercises in there every day. And I promise you, you will see drastic improvement in your drawing and just being quicker with your drawing as well. That's not something that's going to happen in a day or two. You know, you do have to do this for like weeks. And since you do have something there, like just physical evidence of how much better you get over time. That's the benefit of having a pad as opposed to just having loose paper around. You can always go back and be like, oh, 2 weeks ago, this is what I drew, the same object, and this is how I'm drawing now. Did my technique get better? Did I improve? And if I didn't, where can I improve it? You know, did I make sure that I didn't press hard? Did I do the 3 tones? Did I do the highlights, midtones, and shadows? And did I try to layer in? You know, all these different things you could check with yourself. And as I was mentioning, it's also great to write, you know, so if you're like busy, you have many things, you're juggling many things, just write down these things. You know, you could do like midtones, highlights, and shadows. And now it's there. So anytime you come back to this page, you could be like, oh yeah, it's these 3 things. You could do like a little bullet point thing to make them stand out a little bit more. Like, all right, these are the things that I have to keep in mind. And you might forget, you know, you might just get too busy or whatever, and then just not really keep that in mind next time you're drawing. But the great thing about having a sketchbook is you can always reference these things. So I am going to end it here, guys. This is it for the basics one. Tune in on Monday. I'm going to be taking a break tomorrow, but on Monday I'm going to be back doing the same, drawing basics. So make sure you tune in if you enjoyed this content. If you're enjoying this content, just subscribe and you'll get notification next time I'm going live. And stick around. There'll be some exciting news coming up, so you won't want to miss that. Alright guys, see you soon.